Welcome back to another episode of Dev Talk Season 2. Hi, I'm Krish, and in our last episode, we explored the fundamentals of monitoring and evaluation. If you haven't watched it, I would recommend go check it out. It's packed with insights that's gonna lay a foundation for our today's discussion. In today's episode, we are gonna talk about the project cycle, a crucial process that ensures that our projects are well planned, executed and evaluated. Joining me today, I have Pravar, who's going to elaborate us on this topic.
Hi Krish, excited to be here.
So let's start with a very basic question. What project cycle is and why it is so essential?
So for us, a project cycle is a set of milestones that need to be covered within a fixed amount of resources and within a fixed timeline. So a fixed time period. So with in our organization, we try to cover a project cycle through 3 phases. Phase 1, which is the preparatory phase, within which we have the desk review, finalization of tools. Tools as in the questionnaire, the survey that will be conducted in the field. And then we have the hiring and finalization of enumerators. Then we have our phase 2, which is the data collection, which is the majority of the project cycle, of the entire project itself. And after which we have our phase 3, which is the data analysis and reporting, in which the data is analyzed, cleaned, and then we draft a report based on that particular data.
So as you mentioned, like first phase 1 is the preparatory phase. So I would like you to elaborate us what all process and what all activities are done in that preparatory phase.
So after we come into a project with an organization, we first try to do a desk review. We conduct a desk review. We conduct a heavy, extensive, comprehensive desk review of all literature that is available on that program. So we try to cover all indicators, all factors that could lead to that program benefiting that particular community. That community could be anything. That could be a school, that could be a village, and how that benefits the society there. So we try to cover all types of literature. In addition to that, all the program related documents, theory of change that they might have made in terms of implementing that program. So we conduct a desk review of all that, after which we prepare our tools. We call them tools. They can be called questionnaires, like survey questionnaires, basically quantitative and qualitative questionnaires. But in our organization, we follow the word tool because it's our medium of communicating with the other individual. So we finalize these tools, we translate these tools into the vernacular language, the common language that is there in that area, so that that semantic relation is understood. The way I speak to you in English and the way you understand it in Hindi when you process it back. So we try to maintain that relationship while translating the tools. After which we hire enumerators, investigators, enumerators, data collectors. There are a lot of words in these projects for them. So these individuals, they are hired based on the relevant amount of experience that they will have in that particular domain, whether it is health, education, livelihood, agriculture. So based on that, they are hired, whether they have the relevant amount of experience. In addition to that, their area of that job, their knowledge of that geography. So we try to hire these investigators and then finalize a list of investigators that will conduct the data collection. After which we give them training on the tool, how to administer the tool, how to ask a question, how to make it most understandable to the respondent. So we do that during our training.
That sounds like a very comprehensive process. And why is it so important to follow these steps in this way?
Well, Krish, actually, it has to be comprehensive at the start itself. We have to be well prepared. It has to be made meticulously at the start itself, so that we have lesser issues to work with. If I'm conducting a survey and it has loopholes at the start itself, when I conduct the survey, at the end the data is not going to be accurate at all. So that is why we try to include all types of variables, indicators, all types of risks into our tools, And we conduct our trainings in such a manner so that they know how to best present the question and to garner the best response from that particular individual. So that is why it is very comprehensive. It is very important to analyze all types of literature from that particular area, from that particular domain, and from the program itself to gain their experience. So whenever we develop the tool also, we share that with the program head of that particular, let's say for example, a CSR activity that is happening. We share that tool with them also so that they also provide their practical experience on it, whether what word to use or how to phrase this question better in this translation. So we try to maintain that. So that is why it is very important to make it as comprehensive as you can at the start itself so that your data is more accurate.
Absolutely, Pravar. Preparation is the key. I also take it that way. So let's move on to the second phase, that is like the data collection phase. So what all activities are covered in that phase?
So as I said, all these phases are connected. So within the data collection phase, it's the majority of the project. I know that phase 1 was very comprehensive, so you might think that it could be the majority of the project, but no. Everything that is important about the project is within phase 2, which is our data collection phase, because that is where the actual data collection happens. Our investigators on field, they are interacting with the individuals. Of course, they've undergone our training on research ethics, how to dress appropriately, how to conduct themselves in that particular environment, in the environment that is there. So that phase, that data collection phase, is just investigators collecting data, and at the back end we have our data managers who are conducting back checks, spot checks, back checks. In addition to that, our supervisors, field supervisors that we have, they also do that, and our in-house field coordinator, he or she is the one who hires these investigators. So he maintains the check on them. He tries to maintain the check on data also. And our data manager, of course, he spots any issues or errors that is going on during the data collection, highlights that to the field coordinator, and then the field coordinator as such highlights that to the investigator. So data collection, the initial 2-3 days are very important, very important, because that provides a trajectory for the data that you will gather, whether it is an incline or a decline in a certain type of response. So it is very essential to, it's a 24/7 thing where you have to be at the data, analyze it, cross-check each and every variable that is there, so that you can ensure that the data is accurate and it is more robust. So the comprehensive thing, which is preparatory phase, helps us make the data more robust, and the daily analysis of the data helps us make it even more robust and more understandable.
It sounds like there's a lot of real-time quality control happening at your place or in this phase. So how important it is for you guys to actually evaluate it, like ensure how the quality of the data?
Of course, like in the present time, with so much technology that we have access to, real-time monitoring is very essential. And to ensure that your data is more accurate, is more realistic, you need real-time monitoring. And for that, our data managers, we conduct trainings for our investigators, but we have an in-house training for our data managers also, where they create dashboards through which we are able to analyze what type of data we are collecting, whether that data is more accurate for that area. And in addition to that, the comprehensive phase that also supports this data. That is another way to check whether this data is realistic or not. So that way we are able to ensure that real-time monitoring helps us to ensure that the tool that we are using is more realistic, is more understandable, and the data that we gather is much more responsive in nature.
And what if the data that you have received, the quality of data is not up to that mark, the level of the kind of data that you were expecting is not up to that mark? So what all processes that you use in that later on?
Like I stated earlier, that we do conduct back checks and spot checks, and in addition to that, there's also real-time monitoring. So there's very less chance that some data quality could be bad, And in addition to that, we always take a sample size wherein we take a certain percentage of error sample size that could be there. So of course we cannot expect 100% accuracy there, but we do ensure that we have an above 95%, above 90 to 95% accuracy in our data, and that is supported by the literature, the comprehensive thing, the literature that we used earlier also.
Thank you so much for giving such a brief elaboration on this topic. So let's move on to the final phase, that is like reporting and analysis phase. So what all activities do you do in this phase?
So that is our phase 3, the data analysis and reporting. So pardon me. So within that phase, after the data is collected, if you follow all these steps, when you follow all these steps, what happens is that there's a concept of data cleaning, where our data manager has to look at empty responses or responses that can track that trajectory of that data itself. So our data manager sits down on the data, fills out all empty responses. If there's any additional data that needs to be added, either the investigator will go out into the field again and refill that particular form, or things like he can also add additional values to make it more understandable. In addition to that, we also provide these others options in questions, right? So we try to clean that out and make it into one option. But if there are a lot of others options that are same, so we make that also another option within the questionnaire. So a lot of data cleaning happens in there, and that also has to be very rigorous. So our data manager is heavily involved during the phase 2 and phase 3 because they have to maintain that the data is more accurate and it's more easy and understandable for us and for the CSR program heads, so who have conducted the program. So that is their job in terms of data cleaning, why it is so essential. In addition to that, we also try to conduct advanced analysis of the data after ensuring that the data is entirely clean, so that we notice that there are no anomalies. So after conducting a rigorous data cleaning by data managers, we create a dashboard, we conduct advanced analysis like chi-square, t-test and all that. But in addition to that, we create reports then based on that data, and we create reports which are very easy to understand. We try to make them as easy that can be and as graphically and visually presentable to the other person. So it should not be just a table and some text, some visualization. We try to go into that also. So that is what goes under data analysis and reporting. So reporting is just making a draft report which best represents that data that we have collected.
And how do you ensure that your report is actionable and accurate?
So actionable and accurate, that means that how do you ensure that the recommendations that we have in the data, they're not just generic. So we do provide practical recommendations, of course, and these recommendations are not just that we make them on our own. We state that what can be reasonable in that particular context. So based on the previous literature that is there, based on the data that we have collected, we then devise recommendations according to these two factors. So our recommendations are very practical in nature, not something very generic.
Thanks for breaking down, Pravar. It's like you have cleared many things in my head related to the project cycle and how do you make a project successful. So that brings to the end of this episode. Anything you would like to add on to this other than that you have talked earlier about?
I think that within episode, watch episode 1, and if we follow all these points, like why it is so comprehensive is that we have to be well prepared. So if you have proper preparation, then later on there are lesser issues also. So we do follow that, and we are heavily prepared in all types of risks and situations. That is why we create these simple phases but very comprehensive in nature. So I think that can be added to any aspect of life. So I think that's it, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Pravar, for being here, and look forward to seeing you
My pleasure.
in many more episodes of Dev Talk.
Thank you.